So hey y'all, this is Alisha Costanzo, and welcome back to my channel. I wanted to talk about editing. I am behind. Although last month I did edit 21 stories, which is pretty darn good. I wonder how many pages that is. I'll have to check at some point by the end of this how many pages I've had edited altogether. But I had planned on getting a head start in December, and that didn't happen. If you've been following me at all, you would know that I got the flu, I got food poisoning, and like a cold or something all at the same time. It was ridiculous. On top of that, my oldest and my kitty died. He was my husband's emotional support animal, so like he was mine too, but I didn't get anything done in December, needless to say. I did start in January pretty heavy. Some of the longer stories are what's keeping me from progressing as far as I'd like, because I can whip out like a 6-page story, an 8-page story after having taught without having to grade as well. But I have 4, 5, 7, 15 to 19 page stories to edit this week. And I don't have grading, which is good. I get grading on Friday. I have a little bit longer to grade these, so I should be doing the majority of that at school instead of bringing it home with me, which is really nice to actually get paid to do it instead of not getting paid to do it. But yeah, I'm going to bring you guys on my journey to frantically catch up with how many stories does that make it? 45 stories I'm going to try to edit in February, because my date for getting these back is the 29th. We'll see how far I get. This often happens to me, actually, and I gave myself plenty of extra room, but shit happened and took like 2 or 3 weeks away from me, which I did not plan for that much. So I'm gonna have to buckle down and just edit my ass off. That's pretty much how it's gonna be. At least got my last story sent an acceptance letter. It was a rewrite. I was supposed to get it back on the 1st. He gave it back to me sooner. I haven't had time. So I finally got down to it. I've edited the first 6 pages of it to test it out, and then I said yes. And so I'm going to finish that one tomorrow, and hopefully a 6 to 8 pager tomorrow. And I don't know if you guys are interested in seeing me do it with that fast screen like I've been doing, or just a recap, or a pause and taking note of some of the nice language that I find, or to teach you a lesson about the notes that I make. If that kind of stuff interests you, I'll put a little bit of each of that in here. Let me know in the comments below what types of things that you like and what you don't, because this is shit that I do every day, so I don't really know what's interesting or what y'all might not know about the editing process, the publishing process, or any of that stuff, especially when somebody else is editing and publishing your stuff in an anthology or through their independent press, which is what I do. Let me know if you have questions, but I'm going to show you some snippets of what that looks like next. So I found a really good line, and I wanted to read to y'all. And it says, "The road was narrower than he remembered. The woods on either side significantly thicker. They loomed, dripping and darkened." Just nice image. So I came across another good line. Second story of the day. I finished the 21 pager. I'm on a 7 pager now, which is pretty clean in general, but I loved this. "We've been meeting once a year for a decade now. On more than one occasion, we've both messed up the time and place. Sundials, cuckoo clocks, and even smartphones are unable to protect us from the cosmic jet lag." Hey guys, got my 2 stories edited for today, and it is 1:37, so I may get a little bit more editing in today. I don't really know. I'm supposed to be working on my freelancing pitch too, and then I have my writing to do and some vlogs to put up. So maybe I'll get another 5-10 pages in another story. That would be awesome and get me feeling a little bit better about where I am so far. Yeah, okay. Gonna go back to it. So, what's up, y'all? I edited 1 story, 16 pages, but I got it done. I wish I had gotten more done with my snow day, but I ended up sleeping and then spending a little time with my family, so I can't really complain about that too much, and I've been doing a lot of reading. Finished a book, probably gonna finish another book tonight, if I'm being honest with myself. So, yeah. Alright, I'll check in with you tomorrow about how that's going. What my desktop look like when I am working on a blurb, which is that beast right there. Harder for anthologies than for regular books, I'm telling you. So I realized I'm 1 story behind what I thought I had edited, because I edited a blog post flash fiction instead of a 15-page story. Yeah, but I did get another story edited. A 19-page story today, so seeing as it's 4 and the boy's about to get home and I'm gonna have other stuff to do, that's about as far as I'm gonna get today. I did print out, however, all of my stories for the anthology so that I can start rearranging for the table of contents. Currently have them all cut up in strips and writing on the back in pencil the main themes of the stories, and so I know how to start placing them around each other and remind myself of what the story's about, because I have 74. Thought I only had 66, but I have 74. Yeah. Okay, back to work. So here's a good line. A grizzled groundskeeper trimmed hedges in front of a brick mansion. He glared at Bill over rust-crusted garden chairs. Bill slowed, glared back, and pressed on. This story is filled with nice images. Right above that I have tall colonials hug the woods and loomed like dark sentinels. This guy knows what he's doing. I'm pretty excited about it.
The bell was found dead up in the water. Looked at 3 different corners. They all say that's unusual. The weight of your limbs.
Another one bites the dust. So good morning. It is 8:18 and I have been chugging away at this thing, and I just wanted to remark, like, I am not a classic reader. I don't like literary fiction in general. I mean, there are a few that I do like Margaret Atwood pulls me in, Karen Russell pulls me in. There's a few that do. And I just wanted to take a moment that even though this isn't really my style, there was a moment in the last chapter that did actually suck me in. So, I feel like I'm about as far as I got in high school. I'm gonna keep going. And yeah, I just wanted to commiserate? I don't know if that's the right word. I wanted to celebrate and document, which is what I think that the word that I was going for meant together, but that I was actually enjoying for a moment Lord of the Flies. Alright, I did my chapter for the day. I'm doing a chapter a day, or trying to, and in hopefully by the end of the week I'll have this done and I can move on to something else, but yes, I wanted to note that. And I'm behind on my editing, by the way, so I'm gonna go do that right now. Maybe 2 stories, hopefully. My husband's out of the house, so I'm gonna get a little bit more work done because I don't have to worry about making breakfast and those types of things. So I'm gonna go get to work. Alright. Yep. Hey guys. So I started editing the first story of the day, and already I have to read you guys this opening. This is a good opening. You want to know how to hook an editor? You do it this way. For the rotting being in the crypt, time has lost significance. Each moment has seemingly become an eternity, made meaningless by the monotony of endless torment. He had lost all sense of weeks and months, even years. At the moment he could not even remember his name. There was only darkness and the corruption of unfeeling flesh, awareness but immobility. He knew only the gradual yet irresistible decay of his body, accompanied by the even swifter disintegration of his sanity. Of course I'm going to keep reading that. You know what's funny about this is that this does a lot of things that I would normally tell people not to do. The telling words like knew, having there was, which is passive construction to start a sentence, and at the moment, these are all like fluffy things that I would normally say, get rid of it. But you know what? It works. And that's the interesting thing about writing advice, especially from somebody who does this for a living, is there's always an exception. If you know the rules, you can break them well enough that nobody's going to question you. And this is one of those moments. So it's a good example of how rules are meant to be broken. It's just, when they work, they work. And that's pretty much it. So I'm going to give a shout out to Scott Harper and his story. I don't even know if I can say the name right. Witwenmacher? Yeah. It's going to be published in our Time anthology. But holy shit, Scott, good job. So I finished the first story of the day, 8 pages. I think I can get through 2 more, because I have 2 more right after this on my list that are both 8 pages too. Although, I don't know why I have that since this one's actually 7 pages, the one that I have up in front of me, because I'm ridiculous. Anyways, that was a good fucking story. It was about vampires. I like vampires. It's very old type of mythology. And it was, of course, it started really early so it started during history when we had a lot of knights roaming the countryside and doing battle, and what it means to have warlust and all those other things. Battle lust, I think, is what I was going for. And this man has been, even after the wars were over, was just killing people. He was called the Widowmaker, which is what the title of the story means. And once he's changed, he's warned you have to, you know, be smart about this and not get human attention, which is a very good theme for vampires, because you know, we humans get crazy when we get together for a joint adventure, so, or a joint goal. And of course he's sitting there rotting. We know that from the beginning of the story, and it was just good. I appreciate a good vampire story, since I am absolutely in love with the lore and mythology. Now, I don't talk a lot about it on YouTube, but I do have a running series of Did You Know posts on my blog that talk about the different types of vampires and creatures and where they come from culturally and how myths were created and stuff like that. I love that stuff, how vampire lore pretty much represents the mind and the attitude of the people at the time, because it was, supernatural stuff was used to explain a lot of the things that we didn't understand with science. So why did, you know, their nails keep growing? Why did this happen? Why did that happen? Well, because of vampirism. Of course that's what it was, because we don't know what else to explain it by. And that's my geek, it's one of my geek buttons. So anyways, I really enjoyed this story. I'm glad that I have accepted it for the anthology, and now I'm gonna go on to a new story, so yay. So I got 2 stories edited today, but that's only like 10 pages. Still. Yeah. Finished a script, and I did something else that is kind of silly. I'm going to switch you down. I made a authoropoly author monopoly board for writing stuff, so I'm going to show you my obsession. Then I have my chance cards and my writing prompt and I think I'm going to start doing 5 rolls a month to play with this, and I will start that at the end of February. Yeah, I'll do a whole video on it, but that's what I've been obsessed with and procrastinating with for the last couple days. Yep. So guys, while I have you here and I'm doing my editing thing, I thought I would let you know about some of the comments that I am making. So you see, I'm editing Time to Set Things Right by J.M. Williams. Something about this intro, which I had to mark that it was a nice opening, sharp imagery, action, intention, as you see. Because if you actually look at the words here, there's no fluff, there's no telling words, it is just things happening, images. We are dropped right into the scene. I mean, think about it. The subway station buzzed with sound and motion. People passed by in a rush, some heading up or downstairs, some waiting to board the coming trains. One screeched to a halt as another sped by. Voices struggled to be heard over the mechanical clamor. The doors of the train car slid open, breathing people in and out. The bomb exploded. You know exactly what is happening in this moment, and you don't need anything explained to you because it's already showing you. It's immersing you. And it keeps going like this for quite a while. And I'm very impressed with this story. I know as we get through it might seem like I'm making quite a few changes and whatnot, but in reality's sake, this is very light editing for me and the things that I do to people's stories. You'll see the first real edit I make is to nix what I call a passive construction, because there was, there were, it was, it is, etc. are not always passive, but it's easier to identify them as passive constructions, especially as sentence starters. And here, the there were is really making it weird with the but to start with, and so and the semicolon is making it weird. So I'm just kind of smashing those two sentences together a little bit to make it more concise and to make it flow better. The next one I have is continuing, and I call continue a weak verb. It shows really no action. It doesn't stand in its own very well, and it's easier to use a more active verb. Like moving is not that much stronger, to be honest with you, but it's still better than continuing. And I have certain words like this: continue, turn, look, are all very weak, nearly telling words. They're on the borderline of what I would consider a telling word, because it needs so much more to make a complete image than a stronger verb would. So I prefer condense rather than wordiness. And that goes the same for some of these others that you see me starting to weed out. Thought is a telling word, watching is a telling word, seeing is a telling word, felt is a telling word. And that's because, again, there's much stronger ways to show something rather than you saying, well, I watched them. Well, if I'm in your point of view and I'm in your head and you see something, then I know you were watching it. Otherwise, you wouldn't have seen it and I wouldn't have seen it. So there's no point in telling me that you saw it, as well as just showing me what you saw. And that's what a lot of people get onto about telling words. Yes, there are some times when watching is appropriate, when seeing is appropriate, when feeling is an appropriate word to use, but most of the time it's just telling. One of the other things that my business partner and I decided when we edited stories is to see where the author comes from and to make words fit with that general writing rules of that version of English. This person happens to be from Korea, so they don't have a set standard American or British English, as I call it. Canada and Australia both use British English spellings versus American English. Like, we use toward, forward, and backward without the S. That is the Americanized version, the more acceptable or more seen as the Americanized version of those words. Whereas the British version is they have the S, backwards, forwards, towards. And so I try to keep those consistent within the anthology, at least, so that you know when you have one author or the other that it's going to be consistent through the story. We don't jump back and forth. And there's an actual rhyme or reason for the differences in the spellings of those words. I do leave British English users with their extra U's and whatnot, and I don't make them Americanize their language because this seems inauthentic. So here, because the rest of his spelling so far had been Americanized, I made it Americanized here. Now next, I like to separate out certain lines that they're either really tense or they create a beautiful image that seems to be buried otherwise when it's attached to something else. Here's one of those instances where it seems more like a thought even though it's not. It's an internal reaction that kind of needed its own space, strange being removed from it all. Instead of saying that he felt like it was strange, it's just better to have that notion be more authentic to him experiencing it. The was able to's are not wrong. Could is not a very much better word, but when I can use one word instead of three, especially over and over and over again, I will use the one word instead of three. And the could makes it a little bit more active than the was able to. I am not a big fan of to be verbs in general. I had a lot of teachers in my MFA program and before that hammered to be verbs because they're weak verbs, that they mean to exist. That it doesn't really do much else but allow for existence. So there's usually a better way to say things. Here I didn't want to play too much with the cadence and the overall idea of the paragraph, so I just trimmed it to the could and left the rest of it alone. Because it is a nice repetition to make a point, and I like that. Now here's something that's a little bit more controversial among authors. I have had quite a few authors fight with me about had being needed for tense issues. I learned this trick from she's very well known. She's a nonfiction and poetry author more generally, and that's Alison Hedgecock. She was my mentor in my MFA, and she is probably the busiest, most published author that I have ever encountered. I think she had 64 publications by the time we started working together, and I know she's got a ton more. She's a distinguished professor over in California. She taught me about the overusing had when we go to a flashback. We do need it for the tense shift, and so the rule she taught me was to enter into it with the had, leave the rest of it in normal past tense, and come back out of it with the had, because that's all we need is the indicators of when we're going into and out of the flashback to understand where we are, if the flashback is streamlined enough, if we're not jumping in and out of the past and the present, etc. So that is what I did here with him, is that this is a pretty long flashback, and having all of those extra hads is really going to bog down the language. And so showing it to begin with, if there's ever a time when it might confuse a reader, I would say leave the had in. But for the most part, readers are really smart, and they will go with you through that. So it doesn't, to me, really change the tense or the meaning or the time of the story in the flashback to nix some of those hads. There are authors that will argue with me about that, and that's fine, but I am, again, stylistically would prefer to cut words than to keep them. And so if I can get rid of weak verbs like had and not have us jumping back and forth in time, like we understand that we're still in the past, then I'm going to get rid of them. And that's just the way it is for me. If you want to argue with me about that in the comments below, I'd love to hear your reasons for keeping all those hads, but I haven't found one that's made me believe in keeping them yet. So yeah, good luck with that. So some of this, you see, I like to trim little bits, telling words or something that's already been established we don't need repeated. I'm also trying to trim some of the fat, like if people are walking amongst him on a train, then we know he's standing there. We don't need to say that he's standing there too. It's just more step-by-step stuff that isn't needed. So he does a really nice job of unpacking the description of the bomber. He even uses look in a way that I'm not too upset about, where it says, the man's face was hidden behind the shadows of the hood, so Ahmed leaned in for a closer look. He was older than Ahmed, with a thick but well-trimmed beard and dark, mischievous eyes. His skin tone betrayed an ancestry of desert dwellers, not unlike Ahmed's own. The man's brown skin smelled of scented oils. His eyes squinted devilishly at the explosive-laden bag. It's just a nice way of unpacking it in pieces, but kind of referencing the same pieces to create a more whole image, but not hitting too many details to overload the brain and create a blank image, which is easy to do sometimes. And so he uses a lot of similar things that I just kind of nipped and tucked throughout, and I'm not going to hit them over and over again. They're more followed and continues and telling words and those types of things. He does have quite a few good little images that just pop out and are really nice. I didn't have to do a whole lot to anything here. I know there's another line that I really, really liked. He's controlling time and space and holding a gun from the bomber in that frozen time, and he says, "I can end this whole thing right now." His finger once again found its way to the trigger, but Ahmed could not muster the significant strength needed to pull it, to take a life, to create another hole in another family that might fester and breed further torment. And the idea of the not being able to muster the significant strength needed to take a life, even though it's broken up a little longer than that, really creates a nice impact, and it's in a showing way that we can feel. So it was just really well done. And this story is going to be with me for a little while. So yeah, that's how I edit. So yeah, that's To Set Things Right by J.M. Williams. It's going to be in the On Time anthology. So, alrighty, I better get back to doing other things. So hey guys, I am done at least recording myself editing for the week. It is Monday. I should have finished this up yesterday and posted it for today. I'm going to get to that right when I'm done here. But I figured out that I have, 143 pages left to edit this week, which, well, a lot of 20-page stories, so we'll see how well I get through that. I really need to get them done, though. And then I have 279 left total pages to edit after the 143 to finish the rest of the anthology. I might need another month to do this. I'm not sure. I've been averaging 60 to 100 pages a month. So I need to buckle down and just get some shit done. Not that I haven't been getting my shit done. There's a lot. And I got behind. So, Perpetual catch up is the story of my life. Wonder how much more I can get done by the end of the month. But anyways, that is my experience editing. I hope you gained some insight from listening to me talk about stories, reading bits and pieces in that last bit with me actually going through and talking about why I made some of the edits that I did. If you have questions about any type of editing, that is what I do both academically and fiction-wise, so please ask away. I'd love to answer some questions about writing and writing-related editing, like publishing things. So, alright. Anyways, thank you for watching. I will see you next time. I'm gonna go back to work.